Welcome to my governor prediction for the month of September, so let's start. And there we go. So as you can see, Illinois is still a blue safe state, so I still think Pritzker wins here just above that 12% threshold against Bailey. But on the other hand, for Colorado, I thought this race was going to be a safe win for the Democrats, but the polling has shown to be quite a closer one than expected. I still see Poll as winning, but in my opinion, he only wins here by 9 to 11%. He could still win here by a safe margin, but for now, a likely margin. Oh yeah, before that, I should have mentioned that Texas, I see Greg Abbott winning there by around, I'm guessing right now, 15% above 12%. In South Carolina, I see McMaster's defeating Cunningham by a margin of just above 12%. While in Ohio, easy win for Mike DeWine. And now, before we go to Alaska, let's talk about the next state for Florida. So it's going to be GOP rising star Ron DeSantis going against Charlie Crist. DeSantis is trying to run for re-election, of course, and potentially winning in the GOP nomination. 2024, Trump doesn't run, so the polling has really been quite iffy in some pollsters, but no matter what happens, I see Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, winning here easily by at least a likely margin. It could very well become a safe margin, but I see Ron DeSantis winning here by a margin of 9 to 11% with a Latino vote going for him by a decent margin. So now for Alaska. So before, I would not have talked about this race, but with the debacle and the failure by the Alaska GOP in the special election, that with Patola, Palin, and everyone, it's not looking too good. But still, Mike Dunleavy, the incumbent governor of the state, is trying to run for re-election against a lot of people, and this really just goes down to the wire on how the GOP division in the state is like. So I see Dunleavy winning, but not anymore by a safe margin. I think he wins here by, I'm guessing, either 7% to 9% or 8% to 10%, around like 8%, to be honest. So yeah. And now for another key race in this cycle, for the race in Georgia. This is a race that Stacey Abrams has really lacked this time around in this rematch. So her momentum is one of the biggest issues she has, alongside not appealing to more centrist voters, which is why she's really plummeting in momentum-wise. You can see the pollsters negative 8% win for Brian Kemp. It's really not looking good for her overall, and she could very well plummet the race in the Senate race for Warnock. And I see Brian Kemp easily winning here by a likely margin of, I'm gonna say 5 to 7%, as I've always said before, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see 7 to 8% the next time around. And now for two really interesting races in the Northeast. So let's, begin with the race in Connecticut. This is another rematch with Lamont Stefanowski. You already know this, but 2018 was a really close win, which had Ned Lamont winning here barely by a lean margin, as you can see right there. Really close. Now in this election, Ned Lamont has the incumbency advantage, which is helping him, as you can see in the pollsters, by some margin. And it's looking like if he's able to keep his approval, he should be able to win here by a likely margin of 5 to 7%. I'm guessing it's just like Georgia. And now for Rhode Island, a state in a race that has gotten closer because of the primary that was just held. So Damek, he was almost primaried this last Tuesday, so he's trying to run for re-election, but the issue is he's really quite unpopular, and he will face Ashley Kalus, or Callis. I think Kalus sounds better. So for the predictions, it's really getting closer the more we get to election night, in my honest opinion. Sadly, I don't see any pollsters, but from my gut feeling, the polling industry needs to pull this race more, because the unpopularity that McKee has at the moment will hurt him, and it could very well drop to lean margins. But for now, I'm going to barely keep it as a likely margin. I think Demeke wins here by 5 to 7%, but I'm leaning towards 5 or 6. And now for the lean races. So first of all, you can see 15, 25 are the current standings. So for the most state that is likely to become a likely state in Minnesota. So in 2018, this was a win for Walz by almost a safe margin. And now he's gonna face re-election against Scott Jensen. But the main issue right now is that the third parties, the cannabis, could take away votes from the Democrats, which could be quite crucial. I don't think they will do extreme amount of damage, but I still see Walz. You can see a lot of other voters, so there's a chance we might not see Walz win here by a majority of 50%. And what I believe will happen is that Tim Walz, the Democrat incumbent trying to seek re-election, will win here by a lean margin of 3 to 5%. I still think it's gonna be just below a likely margin, just because of the third-party voters. But that's really about it. And now for another race that is barely just above a likely margin for Michigan. So we have Whitmer trying to run for re-election. You can see that she won 2018 by 9%. Now in 2022, she's facing against a weaker version of the Michigan GOP. I think Tudor Dixon's still okay compared to other candidates, but not as good as what it could have been. For the polling, you can see, Dixon has taken a bit of a fall, but still a long way to go. You can see Trafalgar really not looking good for Dixon even. All these pollsters really make me think it's not going to be a good year for the Michigan GOP in this cycle. It started off quite meh, and it's just getting worse. I still think Whitmer will win re-election by around 3 to 5%, just like Minnesota. And now for the state, in my opinion, for the GOP that almost could go by a likely margin, is Arizona. So Arizona was a huge win for the GOP in 2018. As you can see, it was almost by a margin of 15%. And now in this cycle, you can see it's going to be Kari Lake against Katie Hobbs. So Katie Hobbs has truly ran one of the most, to be honest, underwhelming campaigns so far for a major race in this cycle. She has lacked in momentum, has rejected multiple debates, and is not looking too good for her. You can see Kari Lake is surging in the polls, and it's just not looking good for Katie Hobbs. She hasn't campaigned to the level that she needs to campaign to make this race at least closer. And it's getting to the point that I could see Kari Lake maybe even winning by a likely margin if Katie Hobbs' momentum just keeps getting worse and worse. But for now, I'm gonna keep it as a lean margin. But, likely margin could be coming in Arizona, weirdly enough, even though it's Kari Lake. So it's Kari Lake wins here by 3 to 5%, with my exact prediction being 4%. And now for other lean states that are more closer in my opinion. So, let's go to the state and the race in Wisconsin. And yeah, so Tony Evers won in 2018, now in 2022. So as I was saying, Tony Evers is quite a weak candidate running for re-election. So as he's facing Tim Michels, the GOP candidates, as I said, I think. And for the polling, it's not looking too good for Evers. You can see Michels is rising. And, this state, the fact that is moving more and more for the GOP, it's not going to look good for Tony Evers' re-election bid. And I see him losing and Michels winning by a margin of 1 to 3%, with the GOP picking up this governor seat. And now for, let's go and talk about the race in Kansas. Kansas does in fact have a blue governor who won in 2018 by a likely margin. 2022 is looking quite hard for her to win. I'm still looking for polls, but yeah, it's going to be Laura Kelly against Eric Schmidt. But the main issue, of course, is the independent candidates, that being Dennis Powell, who is more to the right than the GOP candidates, which is quite something. I'm still waiting for more polls, but I've looked at some polls, the ones, they're not the greatest, or there's not that many, but you can see Dennis Powell only gets around, what, 1 to 3%, and that's just not enough for Laura Kelly to win. I will put it as lean R, but if Powell gets more momentum, then this could either be tilt R or even tilt D, but for now, lean R by 1 to 3%. Furthermore, for the next race, for Maine, as you can see, Maine was an easy one for Mills in 2018. Now in 2022, she's facing former Governor Paul LePage, and it's not looking too bad for her. Things have gotten better. Her momentum has risen recently. You can see not that much polling, but Jenna Mills, it does in fact lead in most pollsters, and just my gut feeling is telling me that she barely wins by a lean margin as of now. I think she wins by 1 to 3%, just like Kansas. And that's it for the lean races. So for the first tilt race, that could easily, the high tilt race, in my opinion, that could be a lean margin for Nevada. Incumbent Democrat Sisolak will in fact face Joe Lombardo, the Republican nominee, of course. And even though Sisolak does have the advantage of being the incumbent, the Latino vote and Latino trend to the Republican is not gonna be as good for them, of course, and the independent voters will also break for the GOP because it's a midterm. It's a red midterm to some degree. We don't know if it's going to be a red wave or a red puddle, but no matter what, I still think Joe Lombardo is a great candidate for Nevada, and I see him winning by 0.75%, just below the lean margin threshold. So yeah, he wins here. Now for the next one, let's go talk about Oregon. So Oregon is one of those races right now. You can see right here, Kay Brown, unpopular, won here by 6%, only 6% in Oregon, by the way. And in 2022, it's a three-way race between a Democrat, Republican, and a conservative Democrat or just candidate. And this three-way race is really one of my favorite ones because it's so unique. Sadly for independents, Johnson has dropped off a little bit. There's not that much polling because of how difficult it is to poll such a race. But my gut feeling is that things have gotten better for the Democrats slightly in this month, and I still think, no matter what, it is going to be a tilt race. I don't know which direction that will be. I still have the Democrat Tina Kotek winning here by, who knows, I'm going to say 0.5%. Really anyone's game in this state, this race. And now for, my opinion, the two closest elections as of now. So let's just go to New Mexico. So New Mexico, it was a safe win for the Democrats by 14% with Grisham. And now Grisham is trying to run for re-election against Ron Chetty and Karen Bedoni. I don't know. I'm just going to call her Bedoni because it sounds funny. So the main issue for Republicans is the Libertarian Party is splitting the votes once again. So you can see Ron Chetty was really almost catching up to Grisham, but the moment the Libertarian Party came in, boom, it dropped. So yeah, it's not looking good for Ron Chetty as of now because of the Libertarian voters. So I have the Democrats actually winning here. Not because of Grisham, she's really weak in many ways as an incumbent to only win by a tilt margin, but the Libertarian Party gets rid of the chances of Ron Chetty winning and flipping this seat this time around. So let's go to the final and the closest race, in my opinion, for Pennsylvania. In 2018, this was a huge blue wave in Pennsylvania, and now in 2022 is Josh Shapiro, Democrat Attorney General, against Doug Mastriano, really hardcore Trumpy guy. And it's really anyone's game here tonight. Not tonight, but in November, of course. And the polling has shown this to be quite a neck-and-neck race. It really does depend on the economy. If the economy is trash, then Dr. Mastriano will win, in my opinion. But with the economy getting better and the national Republicans being a bit hesitant of funding Dr. Mastriano, I see Josh Shapiro barely winning here by a tilt margin of around, I'm going to say, between 0.25% and 0.5%, just like New Mexico. So as you can see, the Republicans won with 29 seats against the Democrats 21 seats. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video.